You are listening to the ReRACEables Podcast.
Give you a nice little detour.
Good evening and welcome back to the ReRACEables Podcast. Excited to be here tonight. I'm your host, Tom, joined as always by the lovely Nicole. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me in my own home.
We are here to talk about season 37, episode 7 of The Amazing Race. And it was a doozy, Nicole.
It sure was.
We had a lot of drama. We had a double U-turn. We had a whole new country that The Amazing Race has never been to before in Bulgaria. We had the first self-driving. We had milking sheep and a 102-year-old expert. But let's start with Carson and Jack. They get the fast forward in Dubai, slap in the lap of luxury. They get to Bulgaria. Their lead is gone on the equalizer. Pretty much from there, everything that they could do wrong, they did do wrong. The self-drive totally killed them.
Yeah, it was astonishing how far behind it really put them. And I think this is a classic case of they were New Yorkers and they didn't practice enough. They're Gen Z, which I marked as a downfall. I'll let it be known.
You did.
And I think this is a case of like they just didn't not ever live in a time before GPS.
Totally.
So they struggled with navigating. They struggled with driving. They just struggled all around. And it really, really set them back.
Yeah, and they never used a map in their life. They probably never were in a car ride that ever used a map in their life. And that's just because of their age.
Mm-hmm. And think about it. Who is another very, very slow team? The other New Yorker team. The boys.
Nick and Mike.
Nick and Mike.
As a New Yorker, we're not the city New Yorkers that I think Carson and Jack are. I think they're from Brooklyn, if I have that right.
Yeah.
You know, people in New York City that live there, they just don't, a lot of them don't own cars. They don't need them. People who live in Brooklyn typically don't have cars, especially young people. They're walking or taking the subway everywhere they're going. They don't need a car. And not only do they not need a car, they don't need a physical map ever in life. They knew they would struggle with the self-drive, and they did. No surprise there, right?
Yeah, but I don't think they were expecting to struggle quite as much as they did.
But
They lucked out.
they said it many, 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 many times, and the editors did a bang-up job. Shout out editors of The Amazing Race. They always kind of keep that final storyline, who's going to be eliminated alive. And this episode, it actually paid off.
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why they got so lucky is because of their reputation. Because Carson and Jack have historically been more towards the front of the pack.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I don't think any of the teams like Melinda and Erica or Nick and Mike, when they get to the U-turn and they're considering, oh, should we do it? Who should we do? Han or Holden, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't even cross their mind that Carson and Jack aren't there yet or behind them.
And they were so far out of it, nobody had seen them the entire day.
Right. So people just assume, oh, they must just be way ahead of us. So I think that is one of the key reasons why they didn't get U-turned.
Yeah.
And why they still made it this leg.
So you telling me that a strategy for a double U-turn day is to suck so bad, to be so far out of the race?
I'm not saying it's a good strategy. I think they just got very, very lucky.
They did. to add insult to injury, they get to the needle in the haystack that they chose as their first detour. And Nick and Mike were already there in the mess that they created, which we'll touch on in a minute. But then they had enough time to switch detours, go to the wood carrying challenge, take 3 trips, and put Nick and Mike out of their misery. The reason that Nick and Mike got put out of their misery is because of the double U-turn.
Yes.
This was the second time this season. No live vote this time. In very dramatic fashion. By mere seconds. And this is where maybe the Pops and Jeff, they beat them out by a second in the last episode. But in this episode, they're a second behind Melinda and Erica, who literally beat them to the U-turn. And they had no choice in their minds but to U-turn Nick and Mike. What's your take on Melinda and Erica's desperate U-turn of Nick and Mike in that moment?
I think it was the right choice. I mean, ultimately, Nick and Mike got out, not them, even though they weren't. Probably the better choice would have been Carson and Jack, but they didn't know that they were even an option. So they knew Nick and Mike are right behind us. Let's get them, because if we don't get to it first, they're going to do it to us.
You have to U-turn before you look at the number of clues also.
Right.
That's an important detail.
Right. And once they saw the number of clues, they were so regretful. And
instantly.
They felt so bad. But ultimately, it could have been a move that saved them.
And it did.
Yeah.
Right, because I think if Nick and Mike get there before them,
they're U-turning them.
They're U-turning Melinda. And
absolutely. And you wouldn't blame them.
No. Now, Nick and Mike, because it was a double U-turn, were able to U-turn Han and Holden, who they knew were behind them. Nick and Mike still got to U-turn somebody else despite being U-turned. So it set up this kind of showdown between them and Han and Holden at the haystack.
Yeah. Can we also talk about how many teams turned down the U-turn?
It was shocking.
It was. Especially, I think the biggest shock was Anna and Jonathan deciding not to U-turn anybody. I thought for sure this is their revenge moment. All the people that voted for them, especially Carson and Jack. I thought for sure that is the nail in their coffin. They're going to be out this leg. And no, it was shocking.
See, I disagree on the Jonathan and Anna choosing not to U-turn. They were in second place, first of all.
Well, to them, that's like eighth.
Yeah, that's true. Fair. But
that's their perception.
They screwed people over at the driver's seat. They put a target on their back. The live double U-turn vote happened. They got targeted with Scott and Lori. I think they learned their lesson there, and they said, we're done with this whole having power and influence over people in this race. Let's not draw any more blood. Let's just choose not to and move on and let the blood fall in somebody else's hands. I think it was a smart play because of where they were in the race. Nobody else had done the U-turn, and they knew they were in the front of the pack. So why risk it? And I guess that's what ultimately Alyssa and Josiah, who were there first, and Brett and Mark, who were there third, that had to be their thought as well, right?
Yeah, and that was the right move by all of them. I was just surprised that they didn't jump on that opportunity.
They're the kind of villain of the season in that sense, and
yes.
If people didn't already like them, why try to do something nice for people when it's not going to go anywhere?
Right.
So, a lot of drama at the U-turn, but ultimately it sends Nick and Mike back to the haystack, Han and Holden back to the haystack. Carson and Jack aren't even there yet. They are way behind, hours lost somewhere in Bulgaria. And as the edit showed, by the time those two teams got to the haystack, Carson and Jack weren't even at the Kukeri offering, delivering the apples to the Doja Cat at Coachella / Chewbacca lookalikes.
Right. No.
They both get to the haystack, and I don't know, they're looking for this yarn bracelet that luckily was red.
Red and white. not red and yellow.
Right. Oh, gosh, right. They didn't even realize. They didn't read the clue. There's literally 3 piles of hay, which felt like a real turn of the knife into the side of people. I was expecting only one to have all 3 to look through. This is a new amazing race. Any strategy?
Don't do what Nick and Mike did. That's the strategy. You got to be more methodical about it. You can't just throw chunks. The one brother was calling him out, saying, you have to be careful. You got to really sift through. Nope, he was just throwing huge chunks left and right.
Nick.
And then once you throw the chunk, it's like you don't know what you looked through. And then they went through all 3, and you're just left with a giant field of scattered hay. Like there was no method at all.
No, it was a disaster.
It was just chaotic, panicked looking, then eventually looking with stick because I'm sure their backs were killing them.
Yeah, plus they're coming off of probably a 10-hour flight from Dubai to Bulgaria. They hit the ground running. They're running around, driving around, anxiety all day. They hit this.
Hauling apples, hauling wood.
Physically tired, now mentally defeated.
Yeah.
I like what Carson and Jack eventually said when they got there, that, hey, it could take 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is what we saw with Alyssa and Josiah. Mm-hmm. You could choose the right haystack out of the 3 and just kind of get to the middle of it and boop, there it is. And then you get first place.
Yep.
So there is that kind of risk reward to it, as always. But my strategy with that is thin and long, no matter what. Okay, we're pulling this down. It looked like they had ample space. It wasn't like they were contained. You take one apart and you just make a path with it very thin, like almost like a sidewalk. And you just keep building it out, and eventually you're going to get to the end of it. And then if you get to the end of all 3, you have these 3 thin sidewalks to walk by.
Yep.
And
then okay, what did I really sift through?
Correct.
And what did I not sift through yet?
Yes. Because otherwise, if you have no system, then you have no chance. And that's what happened to them. I thought the most powerful video maybe we've seen all season, and you saw the drone shot of just the pile and mass ocean, it seemed, of hay.
Yeah.
And then the 2 of them just hopelessly looking through it. It was just so depressing.
Yep.
These poor guys. And they were out there for 6 hours.
It's a really long time to be looking through hay.
Do anything for 6 hours, let alone...
It's almost a full school day.
Yeah, I mean, just... Oh, God. Oh, God. What they pointed out that stood out most about their frustration, I think it was Mike that said it. He said, one more piece of wood. One more piece of wood.
Ouch.
Which goes back to when they completed their original detour choice at the wood stack, and it took them 2.0001 trips to get the 200 kilograms of wood because they were literally 1 kilo short.
And I feel like that's very on par with like how they did this whole race. Is like they always just came up a little short. And when you don't have a team that is a strong strategy team, and the needle in the haystack challenge, it's going to get you.
And it's why they do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially in a new country, it feels fitting that they would have this kind of farm. We were just in Dubai, city, luxury, modern. Let's go complete opposite in Bulgaria. Farm country, backpacks made of wood, wheelbarrows that somebody handmade.
I mean, I guessed that the contrast would be India, but yes.
You think it was the same kind of contrast you were looking for?
I mean, I would have preferred India.
Of course,
but it was a good contrast to Dubai. And how about those goats?
You mean sheep?
And how about those sheep?
Yeah, your thoughts on the sheep, milking of the sheep?
Well, first, I need to shout out Nevenka Oshavcheva, the 102-year-old yogurt-loving lady.
Your thoughts on Nevenka?
It was love at first sight. As soon as she came on my TV, I had to pause. I had to soak her in. Her and her little flower behind her ear.
Very elegant.
What a beauty. She was adorable. I loved her. I want to know how much yogurt did she eat that day? I mean, how many teams were there? At least
7 teams.
At least 7 bowls of yogurt.
She just only eats yogurt.
It's how she lives to 100.
It's like those, yeah. It's those stories you hear of the people who smoke cigarettes their whole life, and they're like, "There, you got to smoke to stay alive."
And
she's like, "Just eat
each
sheep milk
one.
and
Each
yogurt."
one, she just smiles and says, "Oh, it's so tasty." She loves it. Can't get enough.
Do you think that was the craziest day in her life?
I mean, I really don't know what a typical day in the life of a Bulgarian farmer woman is, but I would have to say yes.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
I wish that each teammate had to eat a much larger portion of yogurt. Maybe yogurt and the milk.
I wanted the milk.
Because
I wanted the milk.
I understand, like
I didn't want it. I wanted people to drink the milk.
Yeah.
Straight out of the.
But like yogurt was their thing. That's like the birthplace of yogurt. So I understood why they wanted to incorporate the yogurt. But I think they also should have had to drink the sheep milk. That thick.
Yes.
Chunky at the bottom of the pitcher. Whoa.
And I get it that the Amazing Race is more wholesome than that.
They're very kind. But they haven't always been.
Right. I think it was a little bit of a missed opportunity.
Like, bring back Boston Rob era of him finding a way to scheme his way out of eating the disgusting food. And if you had to drink as much as you produce, so if you overshoot it, you have to drink that much.
Right.
That would have been good.
Right, to make it even more precise, a little bit more challenging.
Like, Anna was an overachiever. She filled her thing to the top.
Yep.
And then she would have had to drink the whole thing. That would have been good.
I can't believe you're saying that because you're not a fan of people puking on TV and watching that.
No, I'm not.
Where I love that. I think it's hilarious. Like Steve-O from Jackass.
I hate it.
It just cracks me up when he would have, like, they would make him do something and then he would throw up. It was just really funny. But he was being tortured and it was really hard for him. I think that there was a missed opportunity of, like, I wanted to see Mark and see if Mark could put down a half a liter of sheep milk.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if Alyssa could do it. See how happy-go-lucky she was then.
People really seem to enjoy the yogurt.
Right. Which is so Amazing Race.
Yeah.
It's so Amazing Race that they would just enjoy this yogurt instead of hot sheep milk right out of an udder.
Yeah.
Missed opportunity, though.
I think so.
Yeah. Before we go into the power rankings, let's talk about this. So we're down to 7 teams with Nick and Mike getting eliminated. Alyssa and Josiah, Brett and Mark, Jonathan and Anna, Han and Holden, Melinda and Erica, and Carson and Jack. Alyssa and Josiah get their first win. Are they the best team at this point, or who do you look at this point as the leaders in the clubhouse looking towards the final stretch of the season?
I think Alyssa and Josiah are my number 1. Number 2, Brett and Mark. And number 3, Anna and Jonathan, as much as I hate to admit it, but they just always end up in the front.
So you're thinking the top 3 this episode is the 3 strongest teams looking ahead?
Oh, is that how they placed?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Why do you like Alyssa and Josiah number 1?
They just have positive attitudes. I love how they work together. They support each other. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, they are strategic, they have no enemies. They're just a great team, and I would love to see them win the million.
I agree. I would love to see them win it. I love how they talked about paying off student debt loan and using the money to do that and like start a family and go that whole route. I love that.
Maybe start a farm.
Yeah. Get some sheep, start milking them, start eating yogurt every day,
They'd love it.
go into business.
Yeah. Live till 102.
That would be unbelievable. I think they have to be considered either the top team or maybe number 2. I still love Brett and Mark. I think those guys are flawless at this point, and they've had adversity in this race.
Mm-hmm.
They got lost in a cab. They overcame that. I like a team like Brett and Mark who've overcome adversity at this point in the race. Also, they still stopped to help Jonathan and Anna try to get out of the ditch that they had parked themselves into. But Alyssa and Josiah, I think, I haven't seen them hit a real roadblock.
What about when they were doing the ninja? They had a hard time with that.
Yeah, but they switched. They went to the origami and they were
Right, they
out of
overcame
there.
it.
But that's because they had another choice.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking about the thing that goes wrong. They can't, like the self-driving was for Carson and Jack today. Being the intersection for Brett and Mark. Jonathan's behavior in general and getting targeted at a double U-turn.
But who said they have to have any adversity? Maybe they just skate through.
It's totally possible.
It could happen.
They're that strong of a team.
Ricky and Cesar, I don't think they ever.
Well, they had one. Don't forget the surfboard.
Yeah, the surfboard.
That almost put them out. They weren't. They crossed that lake to outrun Vinny Two Guns and Amber. They beat them out and went on to win the $1 million. And then we had that unbelievably awkward marriage proposal. But that's a that's a whole other thing. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on the Jonathan and Anna being in a ditch and the locals coming to the rescue?
I mean, the people of Bulgaria.
Unbelievable.
They're an amazing people. The sticks.
Right. Broken tree branches, shoving them under the tires.
That was wild.
It was like a pack of ants.
Yes, just swarming the problem.
Yeah, and them all getting underneath it and lifting up the car and like walking it out of trouble.
Yeah.
That was tremendous. Shout out locals of Bulgaria, Sofia, Bulgaria.
If I'm ever in trouble,
yeah,
I hope there's a Bulgarian nearby.
And if somebody we should see is in trouble, we'll be sure to have a thin fire hose like material.
Who just has that? Bulgarians.
Bulgarians. There you go.
Well, it must happen often there.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Let's go to our power rankings. Nick and Mike were our overall highest ranked team. You and Josh had them number 1. I had them number 2. So only small numbers come off the board there. And I'm still in first place by a little bit wider margin with a low score of 32. Josh is second with 36. And Nicole is 10 behind with 46. Final thoughts on Nick and Mike?
I'm disappointed. I expected a lot more from them. But ultimately, I think this was their time.
Top 7. They were definitely stronger than Pops and Jeff, Scott and Lori, Bernie and Kerrigan, and everybody else behind them. It's no surprise that they made it to the top half, but they're out in 7th place. I just don't think they ever quite hit their stride in the race.
Mm-hmm.
The margin for error with them was so small, and I know it is with everyone, but for them it felt really small. They got an extra leg in Bulgaria by the hair on their chinny chin chins. I don't think we ever really saw a strength of theirs except for the physical strength this episode. And even that, their judgment wasn't good enough to get the 200 kilos in 2 trips. They had to go for the 3rd, and that's what got them U-turned and then into the haystack and out of the race. Always disappointing to see number 1 team come off the board, though. Let's cross the finish line. I have to compliment them on this. And it's extremely impressive that they were literally out there at the haystack for 6 hours, failing. Sun beating down on them, their hopes of $1 million, their dream of being on the Amazing Race coming to an end. They knew it. We knew it. Phil comes out there to put them out of their misery. They don't even get to the yogurt and the 102-year-old lady. They don't even get to the pit stop. Embarrassing way to go out. But yet they hold their heads up high and they are overwhelmed with gratitude. They talk about all the good things that happened on the race for them, and they are just in the moment of misery and bitterness and feeling sorry and just crummy and like failures. They're all smiles, they're joking around, and they're filled with gratitude.
The good guys.
Those guys are aces. They're A-plus guys. All right, shout out to Nick and Mike. I could only hope, if I was ever in that position, to treat that moment half as well as they did.
Yeah, very well handled.
Yeah, it's amazing.
To cross the finish line, I would like to end it with a quote. It's really profound and beautiful. It goes, "My desire in life is to pass away without having to ever touch an udder." That was said by Mark. And Mark, I think he immediately changed his tune. And as Brett pointed out, that's one of the most beautiful parts of the race. So good for you, Mark. Growth. And just so you know, Mark, it was in fact a female goat. Female.
It was a sheep.
Sheep. I keep saying goat. Sheep. Only the females have the udders. Again, growth. Thank you, Amazing Race.
Who knew that sheep udder could help someone grow so much?
Who knew?
So quickly.
It's a beautiful thing.
Mark is just good television.
Yeah, both of them together are good.
Brett and Mark. Unbelievable. Shout out to them. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the ReRACEables Podcast. We will be back next week to discuss Season 37, Episode 8. Be sure to check that out. Also, go to our YouTube channel at Tribal Council Blog on YouTube. Check out all the previous episodes, all of our previous podcasts. Survivor 48 fans, be sure to go to tribalcouncilblog.com. Check out my blog. Just finished Episode 8. Great season so far. Great season of Amazing Race. And we love covering it right here on the ReRACEables Podcast. Until next week, we will see you then.